I'd like to recommend 7 Spanish books to you here that are ideal for you to tackle as an early stage Spanish learner. They are great books, not too hard, and can really help you improve your Spanish fast. Now, the 7th book in the list is my all-time favorite, so make sure you stay till the end to find out what that is. But number 1 is one of the first books I ever read in Spanish, which is Veinte poemas de amor y una canción desesperada by Pablo Neruda. Now, if like me, it was the visions of romance and revolution that made you fall in love with Spanish in the first place, then I know that you will appreciate this. Now, it's not strictly a book, it's actually a collection of poems. And if you don't know of Neruda, he was a poet who was born in Chile in 1904, and he actually received the Nobel Prize for Literature. He was all about romance and revolution, and I really love his stuff because it's not too abstract, it's really readable, and because it's fairly short and simple, this makes it really good material for beginners. And look, if you're not sure that poetry is your thing, I get it, but I would challenge you to watch this. It's the Italian film Il Postino, which tells a fictional story of the real-life Neruda who forms a friendship with a simple postman who then learns to love poetry. It's really great stuff, and it's what got me into Neruda in the first place. And I totally fell in love with Romance languages after watching this, and it lit a fire under my desire to learn Spanish. So I'm getting kind of nostalgic now. But if you're new here, my name is Olly Richards, and this channel is all about helping you learn a new language quickly using the power of story so you can become fluent faster and live your best life. Which leads me to the second Spanish book on our list, which is El Cuento de la Isla Desconocida, The Tale of the Unknown Island by José Saramago. Now, this is a short story that takes the form of a parable, and it's easy enough for low-level learners. In an imaginary kingdom, a man asks the king to let him use one of his ships so that he can sail in search of an unknown island. If he succeeds, he'll be sailing for the island of his dreams. It's a metaphor for self-discovery, a charming story with the message that dreaming might just be a true way to happiness. And another way to happiness is to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Go on, give it a try. You'll see how happy it makes you, or it makes me, at least. Anyway, if you're confident enough with your Spanish, you can probably read this in a couple of days. It's a tiny book, courtesy actually of the Hedberg Public Library in Wisconsin, funnily enough, which makes it a great bridge to more substantial novels. Links to all these books are in the description below, by the way. And number 3 in my list is Short Stories in Spanish, New Penguin Parallel Text. Now, this book has 8 short stories by famous Spanish language writers such as Fuentes, Molinas, and Marquez. So the quality of the stories here is obviously top notch. Now, normally, stories by big authors like these guys would be much too difficult for beginners. But this book is what is called a parallel text, with the Spanish text on the left-hand page and the English translation on the right-hand page. And the big benefit of parallel text is that you can read these books or stories that would otherwise be far too hard for you. Now look, cards on the table, I am not a big fan of parallel texts. For me, as soon as you have the English translation, you inevitably end up peeking at the translation far too often, not least because the Spanish itself is far too hard for you. So it's not really a great learning environment, but a lot of people do enjoy these, and it does give you a way in to reading real literature in Spanish. So I'll keep my mouth shut. And as far as parallel texts go, this is a great book and a fantastic selection of stories. And if you want to know my thoughts on the best way to read in a foreign language that's not parallel text, in a way that you actually learn and improve, you should check out this video on the complete story learning method, which I'll link to in the description and up here as well. Now, number 4 on my list is First Spanish Reader, a beginner's dual language book edited by Angel Flores. Now, this is another option that's not one single Spanish book, but a collection of them, and it's specially designed for the beginner level Spanish student. It's a good choice if you have very limited knowledge of Spanish. What you'll get here is simple, easy to read adaptations of classic Spanish stories and other material. And of course, being a dual language book, there are English translations on the facing pages, just like the last book, which is handy if you like that kind of thing. They've included some significant Spanish writers as well, like Ricardo Palma, and the stories are quite revealing about the life and psychology of the Spanish-speaking people, which is quite nice. And you'll even find some vocabulary and exercises in this book in case you want to make it more of a learning experience. Now, one of the things about foreign language books is that you tend to get 2 kinds of books. It's either native level books on the one hand, or very simple and usually boring graded readers on the other hand, often kind of classics, which are not everyone's cup of tea, or decaf Earl Grey tea in my case. So I've dedicated my work to making books for learners that are actually a lot more fun. Because after all, being immersed in a compelling tale, a truly compelling tale, is a pretty great way to learn. So I'm going to shamelessly include my own books on this list because frankly, that's the whole point of these books. So number 5, we've got Spanish Short Stories for Beginners by Olly. Now, unlike the other short stories, these are not parables or adaptations of the classics. These are original stories written with curious adult learners in mind, just like you. Now, I've written these stories with plots that will make you want to keep reading. So this book is perfect if you want to spend a couple of hours learning Spanish in a fun and relaxed way. They're also not parallel texts. They are completely in Spanish. And why is this? Because I want you to spend your time in Spanish, not in English. And to make this doable and not too hard, I've carefully graded the stories to be suitable for high beginner or low intermediate level, with a good range of vocabulary and grammar to challenge your Spanish. And a lot of people get very excited because it's the first time they're able to experience what it's like to read only in Spanish without English. And one of the things that supports this is word lists and comprehension questions at the end of every chapter. There's also an intermediate collection you can try if you really want a challenge, but I think I gave away my last copy of the book, so I can't show you. Anyway, number 6 is 101 Conversations in Simple Spanish. Now, this is actually 3 books, but they follow one theme. So I'm going to mention them all here so you can decide which one will be best for you. So these are my 101 Conversations books, which they're still stories, but they're all told in the form of dialogues, which makes them ideal for learning spoken Spanish. For example, the original 101 Conversations, this book is a gripping Spanish drama that's told by 6 characters, which I wrote with the idea of letting you discover what it's like to be surrounded by real spoken Spanish on the street, just in book format. So then we have 101 Conversations in Mexican Spanish, and this book really showcases colloquial Mexican Spanish and slang. It's about as close as you can get to the real deal language of Mexico without actually being in Mexico, but it's a little more advanced than the previous one, so you might want to save it for when you get to an intermediate level. And then thirdly, we have 101 Conversations in Social Media Spanish, and I had a ton of fun making this because social media has a language of its own, and that can be a real pain when you're just trying to learn Spanish at the beginning. So I wrote this fun book to help you with the Spanish that you find online. And in this book, 6 friends become trapped in an escape room, if you know what that is. Very trendy. And they need to get out of the escape room to save their other friends, and they have to communicate with each other on their smartphones, hence the social media. So you follow their conversations on WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook, and so on, which I thought was pretty cool. Now, before I tell you about the last book on the list, you might be watching this as a complete beginner in Spanish, thinking, well, how on earth am I going to understand these books in Spanish if I'm a complete beginner? And if that's you, then you should check out my Spanish Uncovered course. It's a complete structured program to learn Spanish, but the cool thing is, in the course, you learn with a story, so you can learn by reading even as a complete beginner, which many people love. Anyway, I'll put a link below in the description where you can get a free trial of Spanish Uncovered if you'd like to try that out. Coming in at number 7 in the list, somewhat predictably, I will admit, but it's such a great book, and I left it to the end. It is, of course, El Principito, The Little Prince. I've got a beautiful hardback version here. This is, of course, The Little Prince, as you know, and on the off chance that you don't know this, it's a story about a young prince who visits various planets in space, including Earth, and addresses themes of loneliness, friendship, love, and loss. I think I must have read this book in at least 5 languages. I remember trying to read this in Cantonese. It was pretty tough. And apparently Spanish is one of only 301 translations, which is quite something. But look, make no mistake, the language is not always easy despite it being a simple story. And as a beginner, it will challenge you, and it's probably not something you'll be able to read on day 1 of your Spanish learning journey, but it is well worth persevering to get to this point. But to help you, I recommend you check out this video where I show you the right way to learn vocabulary from your reading. There's a very specific method I recommend to learn and memorize words from stories, and knowing this will help you skyrocket your reading comprehension and learn Spanish a lot faster. So click the video over here right now and discover how it works.